It was just before 7:30 p.m. on February 9th, 2004, when Maura Murray was last seen.
Her car was found damaged, locked, and abandoned on Route 112 just outside of the White Mountains of New Hampshire.
Her disappearance has haunted and frustrated family, friends, and a community of people searching for the truth.
Since that night, there has never been a credible sighting.
You're listening to the Missing Maura Murray podcast. Welcome back to the Missing Maura Murray podcast. How's it going, Lance?
It's going pretty good. That are you, Tim?
Doing really well. We had quite an amazing night on Tuesday on Spreecast.com, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and that really it's still with me, you know. It's been a couple of days since we did that, and you know, I'm still thinking about the energy that was in that Spreecast broadcast. It was really cool.
Yeah, we had a lot of people chatting with us, and we had a lot of questions come in, and so that was just a lot of fun. And we got to a lot of questions, I think, but there were definitely some that we couldn't get to.
Yeah, the all of the comments that were going on the sidebar in Spreecast. First, they were excellent conversations going on between the listeners. It was a little distracting because there were so many really good comments, and before we knew it, an hour and a half went by, and we honestly could have done it for another hour and a half, another 2 hours even, which is why we'll schedule another show soon, and any comments that we couldn't get to, just log back in and submit them, and hopefully we can get to everybody on the second round. But there's a lot to talk about out there, and we saw it firsthand on Tuesday.
Yes, a lot of curiosity. Everyone's got a question, and that's great. And especially because we got to some things in the live show that we had never touched on or really followed up on, I guess is maybe even a better way to put it. Like the airbag deployment was a good one. We had gotten many emails and tweets about that. A lot of other things, a lot of loose ends, and of course James Renner joined us on this live show, and he was pretty great, and he's got a sounds like a bombshell to drop Friday at noon on his blog.
Yeah, I mean, it's really typical with this case that you think you have a bombshell. I'm kind of looking at it. I don't want to get any anticipation of something huge coming down, because these things tend to happen with this case, as you know.
And chances are people who are listening to this have already visited that blog, so they know what that info is, and we don't know exactly right now.
Once we find out, and if it is big enough, we'll stop what we're doing and do a special show on that. I'm imagining.
Before we play the broadcast of the live show from this past Tuesday, just wanted to remind everyone to follow us on Twitter at Maura Murray Doc. Follow us on Facebook at The Disappearance of Maura Murray, or just you can type in Maura Murray. Also, we're on Instagram as Missing Maura Murray, and wanted to remind everyone to call the hotline. We still have the hotline open for your theories, your poetry, anything you'd like to say to us. You can call this voicemail line, and we will record it, and we will eventually play these on the show. The number for the hotline is 1-872-256-2872, 1-872-256-2872, and that actually works out as 1-872-25-MAURA.
And I can't wait to get in there and pick out the best ones and put them out there for everybody to hear. Also, we should probably remind people about the meetup that we're having on November 7th. You want to give them the details on that, Tim?
Sure, yep. It's in East Boston. It's on Saturday, November 7th. And we haven't even really picked a time yet, but I imagine it's going to be during the afternoon, somewhere around noon, something like that. And we are definitely going to go ahead and do it now. We got enough responses that we're definitely going to do it. We want to record some audio, and we definitely want to bring our cameras around and maybe even get some interviews for the documentary.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, it's always something pretty remarkable when you get a group of people together for a few hours and nothing else to focus on but this case. So looking forward to that.
Right. And of course, if you don't want to be on camera or on the audio, that is fine. There's no pressure there. Just come down, meet us. We're pretty nice guys. So without further ado, here is the Spreecast broadcast from this past Tuesday night. And of course, we're going to do more. So stay tuned to this podcast. And please tell your friends about this and retweet it. We really appreciate all the eyes and ears on this case. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Missing Maura Murray live show. How's it going, fellas?
Hello, everybody. Good. How are you?
Doing really well.
Great. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for letting me be here. This is very strange. I don't know how I feel about all this.
Well, you look great.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. We do have some topics that we want to talk about, but we really just want to take questions from you guys and do it that way, because we've been getting so many amazing emails and tweets in that we really felt like we owed it to you to do something like this and just respond directly to all the questions and everything.
Yeah, and I also think that this is a good like preliminary reset to everything. You know, let's figure out what we've learned so far.
Oh, James, you posted another blog today. I didn't see this one yet.
Oh
no? Yeah. It's people are sending me some of these old articles that I've been researching this case for 5 years, and somehow there are still articles out there that I haven't read that were reported on years ago. There's some information that's been lost over time that I think is very important and kind of fits in with some of this new information that's popped up lately.
I was taken aback when I saw your article about how you felt before you spoke to this person that you felt there was a 90% chance Maura was alive and living a new life, and after these conversations that you had, you're now 50-50, and that really spoke to me as a pretty strong statement.
It's very surprising. You know, it's the nature of these things, and when you're writing articles and books, you know, you think you have a pretty good sense of the mystery and how all the pieces fit together, and then in the 11th hour something falls from the sky and completely changes your perspective on things. I'm still reporting on it, I'm still researching it, I'm still trying to track down some sources, but I have turned information over to the cold case unit this week. I've been in contact with them. I've sent them probably 10 emails, and I've been in contact with a private investigator who's helping me on this, it's causing me to take a whole new look at it, and I know I'm going to have to rewrite or add a little bit to the book. I'm waiting to see how much that changes, but I guarantee you your opinion on this case will be altered very shortly.
Wow. That's going to be nearly impossible for you. It's going to be incredibly frustrating to be trying to put this out, and there's no solution to it yet, you know? And you have to be prepared for these things to pop up.
Yeah, and that's, you know, I look at these books, and it was the same way with the Amy Mihalovic case. Is part of the reason why I'm writing these books and getting it out there is the books themselves will generate new interest in the case and new leads. And so it just serves as a part of it, as a part of the whole. And it's not, you know, you can't write a definitive book on an unsolved case because it is by nature unsolved. So, you know, that's why the blogs come in. That's like why the podcasts come in. That's everything's a piece of it. And the book is just one piece. Depending on when it comes out, you know, you know, that's how complete it will be. It'll be complete at the moment, but then things evolve from there.
Yeah.
James, we have a question from Jessica Matthews. She asks, how much money have you spent on this case over the years?
It's an interesting question. You know, one of the main you know, easy things to say, you know, when I'm talking about this case online is, you know, people take pot shots and they'll say, well, you're just out to make money. And if you looked at the amount of money I spent on this case compared to what I'm going to make on the book, I'm lucky. I'm hoping to break even. Just on records alone, I've spent. My wife's upstairs. I should be kind of quiet about this. I've spent over probably close to $600 just on records, and then there's travel. There's going out to Massachusetts. DC. I was in DC, and constant trips. If I were to estimate it, it's going to end up being around 10 grand, somewhere around there.
I mean, you're not even thinking about the money now, right? At some point, you have to stop thinking about how much money you're spending on it, right? Because you're like embedded.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's also spread out over the course of 5 or 6 years. It's a little here, a little there, and you try and wrap it up into other business. So if I have to go to New York, there were a couple times I had to go into the city, and I just took the long way home and went to New Hampshire. And the good thing is, you can write it all off. So, at least that helps a little bit.
Leah Kinman says, what's James' percentage now on Alive or Dead for Maura?
I would say it's, I'm leaning now towards 60% deceased, unfortunately. It's quickly tanking the more information that has come in this week. So it's very defeating. I want her to be alive. I want her to be out there. I want her to be living a secret life up in Canada or Ireland or Australia somewhere, and just having a good time, knowing she got away from all of her troubles. It doesn't seem likely this week.
Do you think deceased like murdered, or do you think deceased suicide?
Or
Murdered.
accidental? Yeah, okay.
No, I think if Maura Murray is not alive, I believe she was murdered.
And you said in your blog, by someone she knows. Most likely?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I guess that would
course.
make a lot of sense.
Yes.
Yeah. We have a question here from Christiane Fiore. She says, can you discuss what we know Maura took with her versus what was missing from her car?
If you're asking me, it's very hard to definitively say because we don't know what Maura took. We don't know what else was in that car. I think we know for sure that the black backpack and some alcohol were taken from the car. Certainly, to me, I think there was too much for her, too much that she removed from the car that she could easily have walked down the street or into the woods with it. I think there was enough there that she unloaded into a back seat and then climbed into a vehicle or into the back of a truck or whatever. But yeah, so it's hard to tell because we don't know we don't know where she is and the rest of the items that were with her. Is that about what you guys remember?
There's nothing more than I could add that you didn't just say. Yeah.
I was just going to say specifically, I think that we read in the police reports that she, or at least the Kahlua bottle wasn't there. But we know the box of red wine was there, and I think there was a 6-pack of a Seagram's wine cooler that was still in the car, as well as the Not Without Peril book. And
yeah, there's some discrepancy, some wiggle room as to like how much of the alcohol was left and how much wasn't, what she took with her, what she didn't. But in another one of these articles that I read today, it describes the amount of alcohol there that, it's just so much. It was too much for one person. Even if you're going to commit suicide, first of all, you don't drink yourself to death with red box wine and Kahlua. She was heading up there to meet with somebody.
Was the box of wine from the party the night before, or that Saturday night? Someone had emailed us and said that they had read somewhere that the box of wine was from the party. It was the box of wine that they bought at the store with when they went to the store with Fred before they went out to dinner.
I think the best person to ask that question to is either Sarah Alfieri or Kate Markopoulos.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably on right now. Let me just scroll through to see.
I'm sure they are. We had been getting a lot of emails asking about the airbag deployment in the car and why the passenger side airbag would have went off if no one was in the passenger seat. And we did a little research on this, and actually Lance and I recorded a segment that never made the air about this. And we didn't think we would get that many comments about it, but we really did. So we have to mention it. And I have the article here, so I just want to read this briefly. And this is from cars.com. It says, since September 1st, 2006, cars and trucks sold in the U.S. have been required to have advanced airbags in the front that can be turned off if weight sensors detect the seat is empty or occupied by someone or a thing that is lightweight. And I believe the weight was somewhere between 25 and 40 pounds. And we know Maura's car was a 1996. So there was no federal mandate, no regulation suggesting that a Saturn from 1996 would have a sensor on the passenger side airbag. In fact, we're pretty sure there wasn't a sensor. Although I guess we don't really know specifically about Saturns, but pretty sure that there wasn't.
Wouldn't this be the best case to do an episode of Mythbusters for? You could do the rag in the tailpipe. You could do the turn. You could do the airbags. It would be great to definitively know, how that car would have reacted to all that.
Actually, yeah, that is one of our plans for an upcoming episode to test out the rag in the tailpipe and see if a car really can run, and we want to
and like how far it can run.
Yeah, and hopefully go along in the car with an actual mechanic. Question here from Brenda Sue. Was there any investigation or any ideas about the Murray family, family dynamics, abuse, or anything like that? That's a dicey one, a hot one
Very
to touch. Yeah. We don't want to make accusations here, but as the forensic psychology professor Robert Eckstein said, that abuse or sexual abuse would fit in with Maura's path if she was hypomanic, which is pretty much what he thought, in a hypomanic state.
I thought one of the better, or one of the blog posts that you had, James, that stood out to me for a long time was your interview with Maura's sister, with Kathleen. It was with Kathleen, right? And she describes how Fred pushed them, but he was the best father that they could have.
That was actually Julie. That was one of my trips to DC. I managed to catch Julie at her apartment, and I think Julie can talk to that, and I think another guy that you guys might want to have on at some point is Tim Carpenter, who was Kathleen Murray's husband for a time. He certainly had some interesting things to say along that topic. There's no doubt that Fred was a big part of the girls' lives. And when I went to Hanson and talked to the former coaches that taught Julie and Maura for track, they're like, Fred's, they didn't have much bad to say about him, but, they described Fred as the type of guy that is always in their shadow, always pushing them. And Julie confirmed this too. And, the type of guy that has his daughters run drills on Christmas morning, because you have to have that conditioning every day. He's driving them. He drove them to West Point. He drove them to Succeed. So, he's controlling. He's a little more, involved in his daughters' lives than the typical parent.
We have a question here from Chloe Cantor. Is there confirmation about which side of Maura's windshield was cracked? When I saw the car this summer, it appeared to me it was from the outside, not the inside. And I think as far as the side, it was definitely the driver's side. We've all seen the car. But that is one thing that I've always wondered, is that, policemen make mistakes too. Could there have been a mistake in the police report that the windshield crack came from the outside and not from the inside? That, looking at the car, the crack on the windshield is at the very top of the windshield, and you can see it if you Google a picture of the car. And it always struck me as odd. It always struck me as Maura wasn't tall enough to have caused that crack with her head. And furthermore, wouldn't Butch Atwood have said, "Oh, she was bleeding from her head"?
The crack on the windshield always gets kind of misconstrued into she hit her head on the windshield. I think Fred actually said at one point, or in the letters that Fred had, he said possibly with a head injury, she's wandering around in the frigid cold. But that's not like, speaking as someone who has hit their head against a windshield, that's not what happened. As it looks like something other than her head hit the windshield, and it looks like it was done from the outside. That's honestly what it looks like. Windshields typically, it looks like a rock, really. Windshields like will spiderweb a little bit more when your head hits them, and I don't believe she would have been going fast enough to, with the airbags going off, right? The driver's side airbag went off. That should prevent you from hitting your head against the windshield unless you're going like 130.
Right.
And at that point, you're probably going out of the car, and you're gonna bleed. And there was no blood, right?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Not reported in the police reports. Didn't seem like it in the car. That, I know we only could get about 10 feet from the car, but didn't seem like any blood to me. So then that would suggest that that windshield crack happened elsewhere, not during that crash,
or something else during the crash.
Right. I mean, it could have happened.
A rock could have kicked up or something.
Could have been a rock. It could have happened before this accident, I suppose. But I would say that any cop would have pulled her over if they see a big spider crack down your windshield. That's most cops, I think, would probably pull you over for that.
Yeah, I don't think she could have driven for long with that crack in the windshield.
Here's a question about the report that Faith Westman had about a person smoking a cigarette in the car. The first thing she said when speaking to police. I don't think any of us here believe that there was a person smoking in the car because of the airbag going off. And I know we talked about this on another episode, and we did get a lot of comments about this too. We said, the first thing that, someone would do if you were trying to get away, and, it's a high stress situation. We know smokers obviously smoke during high stress situations, but this is a situation where if there was a second person in the car, they would have been ready to get into that other car, and probably wouldn't take the time to smoke a cigarette. But with that said, we still don't know, have no idea. Maybe this person, if there was a person, smokes 3 packs a day and couldn't control themselves. I admit I would have no idea. I do not smoke cigarettes. But would the cops have smelt smoke if someone had really been smoking a cigarette in the car?
I just think it's not happening. Yeah, I think it was a reflection. I think it might have been the cell phone or something. I just don't see someone lighting up after an accident, and there has to be somebody else. Like, where did that person go at that point? Because no one saw a second person there.
I've talked to Faith Westman, and she's since, she was very adamant with me. She said she never thought it was, never said that it was a cigarette, never said it was a man, or never said it was a man sitting in the car. That was extrapolated later. She just saw a red light, and yeah, it very well could have been a cell phone. It could have been anything inside the car. But yeah, no, I don't think anybody was, I personally don't think anybody was just hanging out there smoking.
Here's an interesting question from Matt and Kelly. It says, is it possible that other first responders, parentheses, firemen were close by, in Haverhill, or someone listening to a scanner could have arrived before police? And parentheses again, Cecil Smith. I'm not sure who Cecil Smith is.
Cecil Smith was the chief of police in Haverhill at the time.
Oh, right, yeah.
I take that back. He was an officer, and he later became chief of police after Williams left there.
I don't think that's possible, Matt and Kelly, though, right? I mean, I feel like, there were enough eyeballs sort of watching that area that that probably, if it was another car that came by, another emergency vehicle or something like that, maybe it would have been seen with, maybe there would have been lights.
Yeah, this gets into that whole thing about, people, there's this weird conspiracy theory out there that a cop came to the scene first, and, it's the cop that took Maura, and, Butch Atwood's afraid to say that. And so he took that to the grave with him, and it was this, everybody knows it. No. The police had nothing to do with Maura Murray's disappearance. It was, I've interviewed the cop that was there early on. The cops, the police here, they're above suspicion.
I think you're right. I think it's there's just so much talk out there that if you think about it long enough, you can pretty much like wrap your head around anything happening to her at that point. And when you start thinking about the cops, the first responders, it's you know, if you got enough time on your hands, you start putting, connecting dots that shouldn't be connected. And is that what Matt and Kelly are saying here? Because Cecil Smith is in parentheses. Is that what's being indicated here? Someone listening to a scanner could have arrived before the police.
I mean, the first responder was. I mean, Cecil Smith is in the report, but there's this hint that there was this other police officer that was there. I've spoken to Cecil Smith. I've spoken to the other officer. These are good guys. Cecil Smith's a good guy. Williams, the chief of police, is a dirtbag, but he had nothing to do with anything then.
Oh, this is interesting.
The question from Tom here.
Yeah.
Has the disappearance of Brianna Maitland ever been discussed on the podcast?
I almost don't want to get into it because no, we haven't discussed it on the podcast yet. We might have alluded to it, but that's like a whole nother case. And we are looking into, we are following this simultaneously. We it's something that I follow at the same time as I follow the Maura case. And it's almost too much to bring in at this point, if that makes sense.
Do you want to just go over what some small details about it real quick, just so the people who aren't familiar with it understand?
I kind of don't because it's people can go and they can Google it now. I just don't want to like the cigarette. I don't want people to start getting hung up on Brianna Maitland now.
Right, but it was a missing girl a girl who went missing right around the same area around the same time, and I believe her body was found. Is that correct?
I really people are gonna look into this and they're gonna figure it out on their own and they're gonna put it together and they're gonna come up with their own theories. I really don't want to push anything.
Okay,
because I really I want to make this more like a.
Let's figure out what we've learned so far and what people have learned listening to this and reading James's blog without introducing a whole new mystery.
That's fair.
I personally don't think they're related, by the way.
Okay, here's one. I know we've covered James Conrad on the show before, but it's a question from Chloe. Does anyone actually think that James A. Conrad has credibility in his Facebook comments? And his Facebook comments, if you're not familiar, are that the New Hampshire State Police are aware that Maura was killed, and they are pretty sure they know where she was buried, I guess, was under the foundation of someone's house, is what James Conrad said, and that the police, they won't arrest this person because they're afraid that they cannot get a conviction.
I don't know. I think that maybe James Conrad's Facebook page might have been hacked or something. It's typical with this case that something comes up every 2 months or, every 7 weeks, 6 weeks, and all of a sudden it's this big thing, and then you realize that you've just been kind of taken for a ride. And unfortunately, you have to kind of go on the ride, right, before you know you've been taken for a ride. So I don't believe that this is credible at all. I don't think that someone's going to put themselves out there with those kind of accusations on Facebook and then not publicly say anything else. The guy just kind of disappeared. And we asked to talk to him, and he deleted our comments. He didn't, he deleted our messages and never got in touch with us, which just shows to me that it's probably somebody who looked into the case, found the name, and maybe hacked him. I don't know. What do you think, James?
Yes to all that. It's possible it was his Facebook thing was hacked. I think you give him a little too much credit. I think it was probably the real James Conrad. The real James Conrad is no longer a police officer for very good reasons. Which you covered before. We've talked about this. So no, is he credible? No.
Right.
No.
Okay, here's a question from writer Nancy. Does anyone know where Kate Markopoulos and Sarah Alfieri are now?
They're out there. They're doing. I wish they'd come forward and be on Lance and Tim's podcast and answer some questions. If they don't want to answer my questions, talk to somebody else. But tell us the story. Tell us this story that you've only told Fred once and you don't want to tell anybody else.
This is a good question that we were asked recently. What would be the point of them doing that? Why would they benefit from doing that other than satisfying our curiosity? If they knew where she was and everything was fine, what would be the point? I don't like asking that question, by the way.
I think they could end a lot of this discussion. On my blog, I have to approve every comment, and there's so many comments coming in, especially since you guys have started your podcast, that it's hard to keep up, and I try and filter them, but there's still a lot that gets through the question, Kate and Sarah's culpability in the disappearance, even to the extent of, maybe they just help Maura get up to New Hampshire and know that she's alive. It could clear up a lot of that suspicion. I don't understand why Sarah reacted so strangely when I showed up to ask her some questions. And, I don't understand Kate's inability to remember anybody else at the party. And she says it's because, I didn't talk to her until 10 years after the event, but I've talked to the police who questioned her the week that Maura was missing, and she couldn't remember for them either. So, why the deception? Just clear all that up.
Here's a question from Olivia McKenzie. Can you do another show with a different psychic and not feed him or her as much information? Would love to see what someone with no info at all says about the case. Lance, you want to take this one?
No, I mean you can take it. All I know is I was there the night that we called, or you called, Lori Bruno. It was before the podcast. It was before a website. We had just gotten back to Massachusetts from Canada, and we didn't tell her anything other than you told her your name, Tim. And so I don't think that beforehand, I don't think that we were feeding her anything. During, maybe, without knowing, during the session when we were with her, we might have said some stuff, and we might have I don't know, she might have reacted to our body language a bit that I wasn't aware of. But honestly, if she did that, then she's highly intuitive, and she's able to get details out. Either way, it's not bad. Either way, it's a fresh perspective. I know that if she was legit or not legit, it doesn't matter. She opened my eyes to looking up in that area a little bit deeper, looking at bodies of water up there, and the whole red truck thing. And yes, I know she could have just pulled names out of a hat. She could have done the genealogy in her head while she was sitting there with her eyes closed, but it still opens your mind a bit.
I think so.
If it turns out to really be a guy named Ben, I'm going to get really freaked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I, personally, I do think Lori Bruno is the real deal. I have been to her personally, and that's why I knew to call her, and I knew that she had worked on missing persons cases in the past, and I realize I'm going out on a limb and just saying this at all. I think most people who are open to the idea of psychics, if they went to see Lori Bruno, they would walk away convinced. I know a lot of friends and family of mine actually have also gone to her. And another story about an aunt of mine who stormed out after a few minutes of speaking with Lori Bruno because she was really upset at something she told her. And Lori Bruno said, "I'm sorry, that's what I see." And she got really furious. So I do believe Lori Bruno is the real deal as far as, if psychics exist, are real. I think Lori has that power. Obviously, though, no one in that field can bat 1,000. No one could be right 100% of the time. She can't even be right 50% of the time, to be honest. But a lot of times with Lori, she'll say things and, you write them down or you record them, and then your life develops a year down the line. You look back at that and you say, holy shit, she was right about this. Or she was right, oh, I didn't know this person named Ben or Kathleen, but now I do. Now I work with this person and sit right next to them, and they're a friend of mine. So stuff like that does happen with Lori Bruno. So I would not be surprised if she was right with that stuff, but it is, it did piss a lot of people off that we even really entertained the idea. But at the same time, it probably, we probably got as many good tweets and emails about that as we did bad ones. People saying, I don't believe in psychics, but thank you for investigating this angle anyway, because, that's what you guys said you were going to do. You were going to try to take a look at every possible angle.
And honestly, it wasn't, I don't think I would have been 100% behind it had the Murrays not done it themselves. So I thought that it was something that, we could try because they tried it. They're looking for every single angle. So, hey, we might as well look for every single angle as well.
The police and FBI, constantly, they don't make a big deal of it, but they constantly use psychics as part of their investigation.
Right.
They listen to the leads as they come in. And the FBI agents I've talked to on crimes like this, on cases like this, I should say, they will say kind of what Lance has said before, which is, they're not saying we believe in psychics, in this mysticism or whatever, but they have an intuition that some people don't have, a different way of looking at the world, a new perspective, and subconsciously they might be pulling together some bits that we just don't catch. So it offers a fresh perspective, and what harm is there in that?
Right, exactly. And we're not talking anything that's paranormal there. You're talking something that's more intuitive and scientific.
But to answer to actually answer the question about if we're going to use another psychic, we have messaged with Brian Ladd, the fellow who calls himself a schizophrenic dreaming psychic, and he did get back to us. So I think he did say he was going to do a reading for us. So I'm not sure if he meant on air or not. I haven't heard from him in a few days, but I think we should have him on to talk about what he finds, maybe in that paranormal episode, a little bit down the line.
Yeah, but we're probably not gonna like seek out another psychic who doesn't know about the case, right?
Right.
Please.
Right.
Okay.
But I do think it's worth it to follow the leads, and we had enough people curious about the Ben comments and everything that I think we owe it to people to interview Brian Ladd.
Yep. Agreed.
Here's a good one from Emily. What are the chances Maura could have been kidnapped and held captive and remains that way, just like Amanda Berry in Ohio and countless others?
I did spend 2 months researching the Amanda Berry and Gina DeJesus cases, and obviously now we've seen how that's resolved, and that, so things like that do happen. I think, again, if Maura didn't leave on her own, I strongly believe the only other explanation is that she died at the hands of somebody that she knew. It's the only other thing that makes sense. I will, again, the tandem driver is that's the theory that I stick by, and it still meshes with this new information I have, but it takes it in a different way. I'm sorry, Lance.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you. Usually people are murdered by people they know.
Yeah, and I don't think somebody she knows would have been able to hold her captive. I certainly don't think she's sitting up in a cabin up there.
But a lot of people in Ohio probably said the same thing about Amanda Berry.
Yeah.
James, am I incorrect when I say that you wrote a book about one of the Cleveland, the women who were in the Cleveland?
Yeah, I wrote an article. It was in a book called The Serial Killer Apprentice. It was a chapter in that book, and again, it was my research into the case. I spent a couple months on it. I met with the Jesus family. I met with the Berry family, and the FBI. We all met at the FBI office, and we went over the case. And at the time, we really thought they were unconnected. We thought, even though they both disappeared within a block of each other, a year apart, we thought that the cases were unconnected because there was such a good suspect for Amanda Berry. The police pulled over her boyfriend and looked in the trunk, and it looked like blood all over the trunk. And they went to get the warrant, and by the time they got back with the warrant, he had cleaned out his trunk. So they're like, well, we know who did it, we just don't have enough evidence on him. And then, of course, now we know they were sitting in a house, at Ariel Castro's place. And And I'm always going to think about that case, and I know anything's possible, but, you still have to look at the probabilities here.
Yep.
And I really think if you take a hard look at this case and what I've come out on the other side after spending all these years researching it, the most probable explanation is that there was a tandem vehicle involved, and either, and from there, either Maura went on and lived her merry life and had a much better time of it, or she was murdered by that person that was driving the tandem car.
Oh, writer Nancy just asked if anyone has read James Renner's fiction, Man from Primrose Lane. Very good.
Good. And I can answer that. Yes, I have read it. It's very good.
It's about an out-of-work journalist who is slowly being driven insane by an unsolved cold case. So write what you know.
It's a stretch, huh?
Here's a question from the Base Effect. Maura had her keys. A search with metal detectors should be conducted, right? That's a pretty good point, because she did have her keys, right? She definitely locked the car from the outside, and her keys were not found in the car. So, yeah, I mean, I suppose if Maura's body is out there in the nearby area, there's a chance that a metal detector would pick up her keys, I suppose. Does anyone know if they used metal detectors?
They must have. They had to have. They had helicopters with like heat detectors, heat sensors. They had to have.
I talked to Scarinza, who was with the state police, Troop F, and he was up in a helicopter on Wednesday afternoon. And just to, because it goes back to that, there's still this notion, everybody comes to it, well, she got in the accident and she walked off into the woods, maybe dropped her keys there, whatever, you could look there. But after talking to Scarinza, I'm convinced that she certainly didn't walk away. She didn't walk into the woods, definitely not. Didn't walk down the road, and this is why. He sat in that helicopter, and they brushed the treetops. They were very close. He said he could see in such detail that he remembers looking down and seeing this red fox walking through the forest, and he could see the red fox's footprints. He saw the footprints first, and then followed them, and they saw the fox. Now, it had snowed, but it hadn't snowed since the accident, so there was this nice fine powder. Perfect conditions to see footprints, and it had been preserved since the night of the accident. It hadn't snowed since. So if she would have walked into the woods, if she had walked into the woods, they would have seen the footprints. And there were no footprints there. And they did 2 extensive searches and found no body. So she's not in the woods, anywhere near the accident site.
And that I don't see him on, but when we had I don't know if Clint is on here right now. I'm not sure. I don't see him, but when we had him on, he had talked about the weather. And it was really an interesting point, how to figure out what the weather was like for that night, and not to look at what the weather was like for the day of the disappearance, to look at the weather starting at midnight the day after, and you'd get a more accurate description of what the weather was like. So it was unseasonably, like, it was a little bit warmer than what it should have been, and there was like a fine like snow that had gone that had fallen, right?
My understanding from what from the officers I talked to and the reports I've read, it was unseasonably warm, and it had not snowed.
Oh, okay. But okay, so when did that fine snow happen that you mentioned?
Earlier that day of the disappearance, before the accident. Yeah.
Okay. And it can there can be a fine snow at like 30 degrees. So it's not like you hear snow and it's got to be
-7.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Here's a question from Jay. With recent developments, is the red truck more relevant now than previously?
Well, what are the recent developments?
I think he means James's blog post.
Or just throw James under the bus.
So, okay, a couple things. One, the red truck is interesting. There was definitely a red truck there. Whether it figures into this, I don't know. In one report, the woman that saw it was able to grab a license plate. She has turned over that name. It's a local guy. I've looked into it. I can't find anything in this guy's past. So it's very, very likely the red truck, it would just happen to be a red truck that was passing by. That said, maybe it could fit in with this new information. We'll see. I don't know. I will say this. Lance, I'm going to throw you under the bus too. Lance knows what this information is, at least part of it. He knows part of it. The reason I haven't reported on it yet, or a couple of reasons, I'm still chasing a few things to button up. But two, I wanted to let the case unit have a chance to look at it. Now, I have asked them if it would be detrimental to come out with this information, and the response I got from them makes me think that it would not be, and may in fact be helpful. So I will. I guess this is the big exclusive at the moment. I'm going to post that information at noon on Friday.
Can't wait. On the edge of my seat here, the internet is going to shut down.
You're going to put that on your blog at noon on Friday.
Eastern Standard Time, noon Friday. It's going up, and we'll see what everybody makes of it. It certainly leads me to believe that my thoughts on the case are very different than they were a week ago. Whether or not it figures into directly what happened to Maura Murray, the fate of Maura Murray, is yet to be decided. I know it's very interesting information to the police, but it will certainly go a long way to explain another motive that Maura had to want to leave her life.
And you're just holding this back because it's not legally allowed that you share it.
Well, no, nobody's saying I can't share it. Nobody's saying I can't share it right now, but I want to do my due diligence and make sure I've got all the I's dotted and T's crossed, and make sure that there's not a piece here that I don't have. And I want it full and complete, and it's going to take me a couple days to kind of pull all of that together. I'm still running background checks through a private investigator on some of these people that are involved directly with this information.
A question from Leah Kinnan. She says, has James shared this new information with us, and has it changed our ideas also? This one, I guess, is for me and Lance, and I guess I'll start with it because I think we did answer this question a little bit on the Crime Writers on Serial show, but I know, speaking for myself, my opinion in what happened to Maura changes almost every episode.
Yeah, what he's working on right now, it opened up something that I, initially looked at and thought to myself, oh, okay, that's a possibility, and then just kind of read through everything and realized that it probably wasn't a possibility. And now it's reopened that, so yeah, it's changing my idea of things.
Here's a question for James. From Kim Bodapade. James, do you feel this is more of an obsession now versus an interesting true crime case?
Is it an obsession? Is that the question? Yeah. Well, the book that comes out in May is called True Crime Addict, yes, it's it is an obsession. It was, the addict in there is there's several meanings in there that will become more clear when the book comes out. But I think, I know Lance would agree with this. I know, and I don't know if Tim has ever been pulled this far, but there are times early on, I think, where we really got sucked into this case and this mystery. And I think, like every good addict, we've come to learn how close we can allow ourselves to get to this mystery now. And we put up a guard, we put up a fence, and we know what's unhealthy and what's not. We don't allow ourselves to get that invested into this case anymore. My investment is a journalist, and I don't take this stuff personally anymore.
Yeah.
So, and that's yeah. So obsession, yes, but you learn to do it in a healthy manner, I think.
Yeah, it's like a managed obsession. And yeah, there have been people, and you know these people, I'm not going to say them, but there have been people who have looked into this case so far and gotten themselves so deep into it that they can't even they can't look at it anymore. They've gone to the crash site and they've kind of lost themselves, and they just cannot, they can't stomach it anymore.
It reminds me of that character in what was that Charlie Kaufman movie, Adaptation, the guy that was really into fish, and he got all these aquariums and got all this stuff in his house and all this fish, and then one day he just had so many fish that he got rid of them all because fuck fish, he was done with fish. And that's what it gets like to this case, and you build up, and some people, they reach that level and they realize, it's that moment where you realize, this is unhealthy, and some of them go away and never come back, and others learn to come at it in a more healthy manner, I think.
And do you think it's unhealthy because you're coming at it from you've been a writer and a journalist, like that's your trade, that's what you've been doing for most of your life, and some of these people that have gone into it and kind of lost themselves, they were whatever, a dentist or a lawyer or something else, and it started to absolutely suck everything out of their regular life.
Yeah, no, I think it helps to have that background for sure. You have to.
What am I doing? I'm ruining everything in my own life because of this.
Yeah. And how do you explain that to people? It's just not good dinner conversation.
Here's a good question from Truck Stop Twank. What about Hussein Baghdadi? He was a PhD student at UMass Amherst when he was dating Maura. Was he there to work on work study, scholarship? And as we know, he was Maura's track coach that she was reportedly having an affair with.
Yeah.
We haven't talked much about him on the show yet.
First of all, Truck Stop Twank, what a great name. That's a great handle. Hussein Baghdadi is a very interesting character. I will give him credit though. He has never, I don't think this guy has ever lied to me, and he had a very good reason to lie. And everybody in this case lied to me, and continues to lie in weird ways. But Hussein Baghdadi, when I called him up, and, this is Maura's former track coach, and I say, hey, I got these people telling me you had an affair with Maura. And he said, yeah. And I'm like, well, how much do you want to go into it? And he told me, he got into detail, about being in bed with her, and how she never talked about her father. She never talked about her family. But, in bed with her, she would talk about how uncomfortable Billy made her and how she was thinking about leaving Billy. And she would also talk about running away, legitimately, specifically talk to this guy about running away. And she was talking about maybe Mexico. And he was trying to get her out of that relationship with Bill Rausch. And, he didn't need to tell me that. So I've been burned before, but, I trust this guy. I trust Hussein Baghdadi. And he's out there making a living, and he has a family, and he's doing well. I don't think he had anything to do with what happened.
Can we really call it an affair anyway? I mean, was he married at the time?
I don't think he was. It was a little illicit, for a couple reasons. Maura was on again, off again with Billy at the time. And also because, couldn't have it be public, or else, they either would have had to stop hooking up, or he would have not been able to be a coach. It might have been some trouble for him on that. And they knew that, and that's why they kept it secret. And also because of Billy Rausch.
Yeah.
Here's another one from The Base Effect. What do you guys think will happen if Maura is found alive? And that sort of gets into a little bit of a moral ground for everyone here. And James, I know you've answered this on your blog before, saying, actually, you can tell us what you've said.
can't remember. That was so long. No, if she was found alive, I so many questions. I hope she would tell us all about, why she did what she did. And fill us in on her father, fill us in on Billy Roush, fill us in on, Kate and Sarah, and what led her to New Hampshire in the first place that day, and what she was doing up there. I would love it if she came forward with her story, because the more, I hope she's alive. I think it would be great. I think it would be another case of the Cleveland girls.
Yeah, it would be really cool to end this podcast with an interview with Maura Murray, and then we could all just not worry about it any longer. And I don't think Lance and I have talked about it. I don't think we would have obviously any reason to disclose her location if she is somewhere and she wants to be, Marianne. So instead of Maura or whatever it is, I think we would gladly let her keep on living her life as is, but we would love to talk to her, and as you said, James, ask her some of these questions, and I think it would be a nice ending to this podcast, but I have no idea if it's heading that way or not. Here's another question from our pal Aurelia. Lance, why did the Alden Olson videos make you gravitate towards this case?
Yeah. Well, have you seen the videos? Yeah, they. Well, I was always following the case for a number of years, and was following James's blog for a little while, and I just remember checking the blog one night and seeing that. There was a posting up about the Bretton Woods ski pass ticket, and I went on YouTube and watched the video, and it was just that Ken Burns effect that goes into the ski pass, and it shows the date on it, and the title of the video was Maura Murray, and it was like 2 days before the 8-year anniversary or something. So I called up James. I don't know if I've said this story on air, have I?
I can't remember.
I don't think so.
No. So I called up James, and it was the first time him and I ever spoke. And I just said, "What do you make of this this video?" And he said, "I don't know, but it may or may not confirm some suspicions about a certain person in this case." And I was like, okay. And we wrapped up the conversation, and I went back to doing what I was doing. And I was just refreshing the YouTube page for the 112 Dirtbag user, and I saw the video go from 1 to 2. So that means he posted a second video within the time that I was refreshing it. And I refreshed it probably every 3 minutes or something while I was working on this thing that I was working on. And so I look at it and there's no views. So that means I'm the first viewer, and I watch it, and it made my blood go cold. It was probably at that time up in my life, it was probably one of the most genuine scares I've ever had in my life, to watch that video. And for a while I was actually thinking, we're watching this guy. This is the guy who did it. There was no question in my head when I was watching it that this is the guy who did it, and he's taunting everybody, and he's going to delete this video. So I call up James again, and I said, "Have you seen the other video?" And he said, "What are the other video?" And I listened to him watch the video. And I listened to the video over the phone. I could hear the laughter, and I could hear James kind of reacting to it. And I said to him,
"It's a nice way of saying I screamed like a little girl."
I said to him, and this is the part of this answers the question. This is why Alden Olson videos gravitated me to the case. I said to James, I asked him, "Is this the person that you were talking about when you said it may or may not confirm suspicions about a certain person?" And he said, "I have no idea who that person is." And I just went cold when he said that. The hair stood up on the back of my neck, and to have somebody tell me that who's been so thorough in this investigation, and out of the blue somebody comes up with this video that he's never seen before, it confirmed everything about Alden Olson to me at that time, that this was a guy who murdered her and he was taunting everybody. And for the next month of my life, I ripped every single video that he put on YouTube. I still have a hard drive that has those videos on it, and I was absolutely obsessed with what he was putting out there. And it turns out to be, probably garbage, and I wasted like 2 months of my life. Maybe I didn't waste too months of my life. It probably wasn't a waste, but he's just like throwing like just random stuff in a video, and people start following it, and they start trying to like connect the dots. I can't tell you how long I looked at these videos, trying to get license plate numbers off of trucks that were driving by in the video where he has the rain, and it's just him and and honestly, that was like one of the creepiest videos that I saw. The laughing video was really creepy, but the video of the camera, I think it was called Bodies of Water, and he's just got the camera out the windshield, and it's raining, and the windshield wipers are going back and forth, and cars were coming around under a bridge. I seriously was looking for where this video was shot, and
he certainly wanted us to think that he did it. I mean, there's no other explanation for the way he came out with it and what he did with it. And it was totally freaky. And, and then to have, sit down and see that first video is one thing. And then weeks later, open it up and see that he's got pictures of your 5-year-old son set to creepy music on YouTube. That was a totally other level.
Yeah.
Did you lose your shit when you saw that?
If I would have known at that time who he was, I would have gone Mel Gibson on him or something. So I'm glad I didn't know who he was at the time. I wish they would have prosecuted him when we found out, but they just wouldn't.
Switching topics a little bit here, we got tweeted and emailed about a news article that happened or that really broke maybe a week ago about a college student who was murdered in 1984, was found alive and living in Germany. And I just wanted to bring it up because we got so many emails about it and tweets about it. And have you guys heard of this case? And she wasn't actually murdered. She was found alive, but she had basically left her life.
Yeah.
Right. She'd been declared dead, or
yes.
No, they had a body, right? In
1984, Petra, a 24-year-old computer science student, failed to show up at her brother's birthday party, setting off massive police search. She was living in student housing at the time in a German city that I cannot pronounce here on a live show. But yes, there was never a body found, and the case was closed in 1989. And then just recently, there was, I believe, if I can't see it here in this article, but there was a crime, I believe, in the neighborhood or in the apartment complex or something like that where she lives now. And when she was questioned by the police about this thing completely separate to this, she told them who she really was, which is kind of interesting, I think. But yeah, you guys have any thoughts on that?
It shows that it's possible. It shows that it can happen, that it has happened. I think that's important.
Yep, and it goes back to the Castro thing in Ohio. Small percentage of something like this could happen. Absolutely, yeah.
Here's another a quick story, sort of on the other angle of what may have happened to Maura. We got emailed from a buddy of ours named Steve, who his girlfriend Carol was driving on the interstate in the Pacific Northwest. This is about 15 years ago. About 11 p.m., dark and rainy. She had a tire pop, and she pulled over, got out of the car. About 2 to 5 minutes later, a pickup truck pulling a trailer pulled over. She noticed gardening and landscaping tools in the trailer. He was a man about 6 feet, big and strong, and he had a white jumpsuit on. He went up to her and asked her if she needed help, and actually as he went up and he noticed the car and that there was a car seat in the back seat. And the first thing he said was, "Do you have a kid?" She said yes. She didn't have a kid with her there. But he proceeded to change the tire for her, not talking much, going reasonably quickly. I guess it was raining a little bit. He changed the tire, stood up, and then shook her hand. And as he shook her hand, and he held her hand. He said, "Do you believe in God?" And he stared right deeply into her eyes, and she was kind of startled by the question and the fact that he wouldn't let go of her hand. She thought for a split second about, what answer is going to get her out of this, and she said yes. And he said, "Good, because I think he helped you out tonight." Just wanted
No, you can take that.
Yeah.
Read that email as well, and you can take it in this like nefarious, like dark way, or you could just if you say that this guy was the nicest guy in the world, and he said, "Do you believe in God?" and she says yes, and he says, "Because he just helped you out this night." He could have easily been talking about, hey, your tire could have really blown out and you could have got into a serious accident. This guy was not trying to kidnap her. Yeah, it is a. I think my response to that email was, why am I reading this? Like, what is this? Why am I reading it? You can write anything. You can write anything and say that this is supposed to be sinister, and you can look at it that way. Or I could show you this email if you didn't see it before and say, look at what a good Samaritan this guy is, and you'd read it and say, this guy helped her out before something bad happened.
Absolutely. There's no question you can take that many different ways. He might have just been a religious guy, or maybe he's an avid churchgoer, but maybe he's not. What if she said no? How would he have reacted then? Who the hell knows? Just wanted to throw it out there.
Say yes.
When a stranger asks you that question, you always say yes.
James, I was wondering, we had mentioned I know we spoke before, probably back during the Canada trip, about someone at the Swiftwater stage shop getting angry with you and chasing you out with a baseball bat. And I was wondering if we could hear that account from you.
So, okay, yeah. So I go up there, I'm by myself, and I stop in at the Swiftwater Stage Shop, which is this log cabin-y kind of convenience store that's about a mile from where Maura got into the accident up there. And I thought, hey, let me stop here and see if they know anything, because everybody kind of in this area must come in kind of into this convenience store to buy toilet paper in the middle of the winter, because there's nothing else nearby unless you want to travel 5 miles back to the Walmart, I guess. But that's the most convenient place. So I go in there, and there's this guy behind the counter, bald head, and I'm like, hey, I'm a journalist, and I'm here writing about Maura Murray. Is there anything you can tell me about her? And specifically, at that time, I was interested in getting a little more information about the guy on the corner that was questioned by police. And he said, essentially, I have nothing to say to you. I'm tired of talking about that missing woman, and you better get out of my store right now. This was 5 years ago, and not as wise as I am today. When somebody tells me to, get out of their place of business when I'm, trying to get information about a missing person, my blood starts to boil, and I don't want to listen to them anymore. And so I kind of grinned at him, and I'm like, well, it's really interesting to me that, a guy that owns a business here that would have information on this case that might be helpful in finding a missing woman, doesn't want to say anything about her. I said, why would that be? Why would you be so against talking about this? And he said, I'm going to tell you one more time to get out of my store. I'm going to bash your head in. And I said, well, I don't know that I want to go just yet. And then he reached underneath his counter, and he came out with this big bat, and he came up to me, and at that point I'm heading out of the door, and we get on the front steps, and I turn back around, and I'm like, I wonder what the police would say right now. This man chasing me out of his store for asking questions about this missing woman, and so he didn't like that either, and he came at me and went up to swing, and we both look over, and just it's perfect scene out of a movie. there are these biker guys hanging out eating sandwiches, and they just kind of look at us and we look at them, and the guy, puts down his bat and walks back in, and I turn around and get in my car and leave. So that was my incident at the Swiftwater shop there. I clearly antagonized the guy. I can understand, I guess, that he's tired of talking about the case. I still think when a reporter comes in, help him out a little bit, point him in the right direction, and certainly not worth bashing his head in. But there were two hotheads dealing with each other, and it almost went to blows, as they say.
Chloe here says she met the guy at the Swiftwater store. Said he was extremely sweet and friendly to me and my sister. I couldn't believe after that it was the same guy who attacked James.
It was partly my fault, I'm sure.
Here's a question from Kristen Short. She is asking about a sighting of Maura, or potentially Maura, and some friends at a local party store around where she got into the accident. Party store, I assume, being a liquor store. What do you think the chances are that it was her after this new info that you learned? If that has anything, if that would change your opinion at all on this clue?
I don't know how it fits in. I really don't know how it fits in. There's, I'm going to put the information out there, mostly because I want to see if it generates any other leads and new information. It's an interesting sighting. Another thing that's interesting to me about this, it was at the Butsons, which was a grocery store back then. And, there's this cashier that's sure she saw Maura there with two other women the day that she went missing. It's credible enough to look into. Fred certainly was interested in it. He tried to get the video feed from, the surveillance cameras in the store. But what's interesting to me is that the family never disclosed that. They talked about some other sightings, and they feed these leads out to the public. That to me seems like a very important lead, and I don't know why they never shared that.
Here's one from Christiane, and actually we should probably stop in the next few minutes, maybe but a couple more questions here. Christiane,
I'm actually gonna. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm gonna have to take off here in 2 minutes. Feel free to continue on. But I gotta head upstairs. Got a family looking to see what I'm doing, and I told them 9:30.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, we're going just a few minutes over. How about 2 more questions? We'll just do. If you got a split, that's totally cool. Thank you very much for joining us. Butch said that when he initially saw a picture of Maura, he said that that's not the person I saw. Could it, I know this is a little bit of speculation maybe, but could it have been her sister or a brunette friend? And do they all have alibis for that time?
I don't know what the police have as far as alibis. There, and again, we're talking about people that have never talked to me, so I don't know if Kate Markopoulos necessarily has an alibi. I don't know if Kathleen Murray does. I don't know about some of these others, but certainly Maura bears a passing resemblance to both Kathleen, her sister, and Kate Markopoulos. For what it's worth, I'm not saying that they were there, that they were driving. I don't think they were, but I don't know. I don't know about these alibis.
I just think that the picture that was shown probably didn't show. It was probably the class picture, right, of Maura, and it definitely wouldn't look like somebody that has just gotten into an accident. So you can see him looking at it and say, no, that's not her at all. And then thinking about it after they point out certain features.
And last question of the night. Thank you guys so much for asking all these questions. This made this a lot of fun for us. We were a little unsure if we were going to have to come up with content ourselves, or if all these questions would filter in and be as good as they've been. And you guys delivered and then some. So thank you so much.
And sorry to interrupt, but sorry for not getting to every single one of them. It really has been it's been a good turnout. It's been a great turnout, and we're going to do this again, right?
Yeah, I think we need to. Yeah, and as far as the emails go, I think we started responding to every single email when this show first started, and it quickly became overwhelming for us. So if you've emailed us and we haven't gotten back to you, that's why. And if it's something that you think we must talk about, please send it again. Okay, so last question here tonight from John Burkle is a little bit of a fun one. If/when there is a resolution to this case, which Hollywood A-lister will get to play Maura and will get to play Fred? I think we actually talked about this on our trip to Canada as well, to tell you the truth. I think my answer is Jennifer Lawrence for Maura.
Well, she's
she's in everything, yeah.
Yeah, right? I think so. She's
yeah, but what about Fred? Yeah, I don't. That's a good question.
Sam Elliott.
Rutger Hauer.
Oh, there you go. That's actually not a bad idea. I like Rutger Hauer. Can we get Peter Sarsgaard to play Lance?
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And one of the Duplass brothers to play you.
I could see that, yeah. Mark Duplass, yeah. Okay, well, thank you guys, James and Lance, for joining me and on this show here tonight and on this live show. This is a great, as far as I'm concerned, a great success here tonight. A lot of fun. So
sure.
Thank you guys. It was a blast. And thank you guys for listening and commenting and asking questions. You guys really made this show a lot of fun for us, and you'll make this week's podcast hopefully captivating for the people who weren't here tonight.
Yeah, and everybody just stay tuned. Stay tuned for more information about the November 7th meetup that we have coming up. Just like a meet and greet. We'll have some food, have some beverage, and just talk about the case. And we'll probably roll some audio and some video on it as well. But yeah, just wanted to extend. These comments are amazing. I can't stop reading them. Thanks, guys. It was fun.
Thanks for having me on, too. Thank you very much.
We'll see you again very soon, and keep those tweets and emails coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.